This is Lynn Goldstein, who is a wonderful artist, and I'm very eager to talk to her about her art. So welcome, Lynn, and congratulations.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Great. It's a great piece you got behind you, two pieces actually.
Yes, thank you.
To start with, I'd be very interested to hear about your journey to becoming an artist, and what motivated you. Was there any defining moment or?
I never wanted to do anything else
Really? Wow.
but be an artist of some stripe. My mother was my first art teacher. She taught me how to draw, and this was when I was very, very young. She had studied art herself. My father was an unwitting participant in my eventual coming to the landscape, because I grew up in the mountains of West Virginia, and although we were by no means campers in our family, we did not do that. There's no way my father would have gone camping, but the land was really important to him, and we had a home that looked out to the mountains. And so I saw that every single day. But I also studied ballet until my feet said absolutely no more, and I had to have surgery on both of my feet. And I also played musical instruments. So art was always really very important to me. And I was a graphic designer for 17 years and was painting and doing fine art during that whole time. So I always gravitated toward the arts, and nothing has changed there.
Oh, wonderful. Has there been an evolution to landscape then? You seem to infer that there might have been, that you were doing work or abstract.
Well, there was an evolution to landscape, and now that's evolving as well. But I originally, when I first started thinking that I wanted to move from graphic design to exploring fine art more, I thought that I wanted to become a portrait painter. And then I realized that that was absolutely not my direction. And I had to go back to the drawing board, literally, and figure out what it was that really fed my soul. And I recognized that growing up and for my entire life, whenever I was feeling moments of discomfort and needed to work things out in my mind, I would go out into nature. And specifically, I liked being around the trees. And so then I knew, well, that's the direction I needed to take. And so what ultimately happened, because I hadn't been doing landscape, I had been doing portraiture and figure. I started doing what you could probably call as portraits of trees. So I started with individual trees and then moved to the landscape at large. And now what's happening, last year, I made a conscious decision that I wanted to change my work further. And I started abstracting the landscape more. So that's an ongoing thing. And who knows, maybe I may go directly into abstract. But so far, whenever I start an abstract painting, it turns into an abstracted landscape.
Yeah, I've seen your abstract work, and there is definitely, it is much more abstract than your major body of work at this point. Mm-hmm. But I can see the natural reference too. So I have a question for you. I'm self-taught, and I had a whole other career in Soviet affairs, actually.
Wow.
And when I decided to become an artist, I was very left-brained. I would sort of imagine what I wanted to do and then fight with the canvas to try to get it there. And it was sort of a journey for me to essentially open up and loosen up and access other parts of my brain. As a graphic designer for 17 years, did you ever have that struggle where it was, with graphic design, it has to be very precise and it has to be very thought out. But your painting now is very fluid and very emotional and passionate, I think.
Well, thank you.
Did you have a similar journey, or did you could just access that through your whole life? The less structured or the more open work?
That's a really good question. I think that I've always been a little bit of a rebel. So even though I mean really a little bit of a rebel, you wouldn't see me. Well, we aren't going to go into that, but
come on, Dish.
and no. But I think that if I understand your question correctly, I think that I studied painting and I learned to do things a certain way with certain rules, and then I decided, oh, to heck with that. And that's the rebel part coming out, where some people, for example, will be really happy painting very, very representationally for their entire lives, and their whole raison d'etre is to be the best that they can possibly be, doing ultra representational work. And I admire those people. I can't do that. I have to be looking to say, oh, well, gosh, I wonder what would happen if I used this tool instead of this brush. I wonder what will happen if I use this surface instead of that surface. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think what it is it's just an undying curiosity of answering the question, what if?
Yeah.
What if I tried that?
No, in fact, you answer already a question that I was going to ask you, and that's a question of how important experimentation is to your work, and you just answered that. And that was, I guess, as I think about it, actually, it's sort of a bit of a minor epiphany you've given me. I mean, when I made the conscious change to try to access different ways of approaching my work rather than very rational and analytic, it was experimentation that really was what I did, and has become actually really what drives my work, is just a sense of experimentation. But so thank you for that epiphany.
You're welcome. Happy to help.
So as I mentioned, I find your work very passionate and spontaneous, although I know there's a lot of labor that's going into it. But what are your, would you say your work is spiritual, or it has spiritual in nature? There's environmental issues being dealt with, or is it just trying to give a uplifting sense of beauty of the natural world, or all of the above?
I would say all of the above. I come from the Jewish tradition, and that is actually really important to me, especially having grown up Jewish in West Virginia. It's kind of a disconnect. But I guess a little bit of a rebel. I have always looked for a more spiritual approach to organized religion. I don't know if that makes sense, but I always feel particularly when I walk into the trees and walk into a path where there are trees, I can breathe better. This is a tough one. I don't tend to talk about my my spiritual side, and I've gone through periods of my life when I feel very connected to that, and then I drift away, and then I come back. I sense that I'm coming back right now because I need to, because of what's going on in the world. It
seems to me, I don't know if this is connected, but you have on your website, you mentioned that you do installations, and it's a sort of a cathartic moment. And it seems that those installations tend to much more directly address both your Jewish heritage, but also there's a more obvious, I'd say, spirituality to it.
Yes, and thank you for kind of throwing me a lifeline there, because I felt like I was drifting and not making a lot of sense.
You were.
I have always had a strong feeling that everything is connected. Everything is connected. So therefore, in answer to the original question, yes, my work has to do tangentially with the fact that we need to take care of the planet, because if we don't take care of the planet, we can't take care of anything else. So concentrating on the landscape affords me that, you know, showing people how that beauty and how that can really, really impact you and help you to be a better person. The work that I did exploring Jewish themes and my history also had a bit of a landscape component in them. You know, one piece has a single tree, another piece has actually aspen trees, because aspens are one giant organism and they're connected by their root system. And that, what I was talking about with that was that the people who came here from other countries came to the United States, because that's what that piece was about. We are all connected. I'm connected to them. You're connected to them. We're all connected to one another. Now, you know,
and we're also all connected to Mother Earth too.
That's it. There was a piece that I did. I was asked to participate in an international exhibition that took place at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine and also at the National Cathedral. And I was really honored to be involved in that, because of what that exhibition was all about. It was trying to bring people together instead of tearing people apart. But the name of the exhibition was Amen, a Prayer for the World. And I really didn't want to discuss prayer. Again, a little bit of the rebel coming out. I didn't want to discuss prayer, but what I wanted to discuss was the thing that was common for all of us, which was the environment and taking care of that so that we could, again, take care of one another. So that the piece that I did showed, it's a sculptural form and it shows trees, but it's a figure, and the way that it appears is the figure is embracing the trees, but the trees are embracing the figure as well. So there are some spiritual aspects to my work, not so much, you know, in the work that I have right here, but
I definitely saw it in visiting your website. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, and there's, quite frankly, I think I could go on with this conversation right there for a long time, but a couple more, I guess, let's say, work questions about the actual work itself. And so you mentioned that obviously experimentation is quite important to you. Color also seems to be a very important factor too. I mean, your colors aren't shy. I mean, they're powerful and bold.
Thank you.
It is so, and also it's you have a shade of purplish blue for trees, clusters of trees that I've never seen, but it's wonderfully electric. So you're obviously also just, I mean, I guess that's in part a bit of the abstract aspect that you're introducing into it. Or so.
Yes,
No.
That's exactly right. I have wanted to push color and go for color that's not exactly what we see for a long time. And I've been doing that for a long time, but I'm just pushing it further. That's all. I mean, I've had people come in and see my work and say that, oh, it's vibrant and alive. And I'm like, good, that's what I want.
So
as long as it works.
Do you work in series, or can one work be succeeded by one that looks quite different in approach? I mean, because you do have a number of different, even though all your body of work is integrated at some level, there is certainly a good degree of variation between works. I mean, and you sort of get in a flow of doing a couple of works, let's say with blue trees, and then you move to something else, or?
I have worked in series quite a lot during the years that I've been working, and I want to get back to another series, but I'm having trouble intellectualizing it and making it work for me. So I would say yes, I do work in series, and yes, the work can also just stand alone, and sometimes I'm not working in series, and I'm really thinking of the next direction that I want to take, and hopefully another series will come out of that, because I actually really enjoy working in series.
So thank you for that answer. Last question. How would you say that the pandemic has affected you, your work, in any way or not?
Yes, it has. I've given that an overabundance of thought, because the pandemic just looms large, and everything else that's going on right now just looms large. But mainly with the pandemic, I have a studio outside my home, and it's much bigger than where I am right now, which is like a postage stamp. So, I'm always falling over things. And I thought that when I moved back home in March, that I would simply only work on small pieces. But then I got a commission that was 36 by 50. So I had to do this big piece in this postage stamp, and I kept falling over things. I was able to finish it. I just started going back to my outside studio recently, because I realized that, yes, I should be fine there. And I can't tell you how happy I am. There's an energy that I get from being in that space that I was not getting since March. I have done work, I've been painting, I've been researching, I've been thinking and trying to figure out the next directions that I want to take with my work. But the pandemic emotionally is draining, which affects what I do on canvas or panel or whatever I'm working on. But I'm so grateful for everything that I have. So it's not a complaint. It's just, I recognize that it does affect what I'm doing.
So I wonder too, and it can be a bumpy road, being an artist.
Yes.
It's not the easiest thing. But one of the things that I find, and I would guess you do too, is that when I have the time to sit down, doing a series of drawings at home, when I have the time to sit down and start drawing, I just go to a whole nother place that is absolutely wonderful place to be. And it's just the here and now disappears. And I think that's a wonderful gift of being an artist is accessing that creative process and then just being absorbed by it.
I think it's one of the reasons that people do it.
Yeah.
It's a drug without taking drugs.
And you have to do it. It's
you have to.
It's an imperative.
You have to.
Yeah.
I was talking to actually a friend yesterday, and she said, I can't believe that you've done all of this work since March. And I said, well, I have to.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, so what does a visual artist do? They sit in a room by themselves for a long period of time every day. So, the pandemic is really a big change in my work style. I'm still sitting in a room by myself for long periods of time, and it works. But thank you so much. It was a great pleasure talking to you, and I wish you well. Stay safe, and
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm so glad to be here.